Pardon me, boy, is that the Chattanooga choo-choo?
Choo.
If you're a child, you haven't got any sense of perspective because you've never seen it
That's
before,
right. But
whatever it is.
Yes, but that's also how our brains work. So the part of the brain that is in charge of memory is the hippocampus. It also is in charge of dreams. That's why our dreams and our memory is a bit confusing sometimes.
We didn't have this when I was young. No one was ever anxious then. Hello and welcome, a very warm welcome to Help My Child's Anxious, the podcast with me, Vanessa Feltz, and my talented child therapist daughter, the lovely Saskia Joss.
Oh, nice to see you.
We'd like to say hello to all our new followers
On YouTube. We're very, very pleased to see you on YouTube, and we're hoping more people will come and see our beautiful dresses and the gorgeous house and all the wallpaper on our YouTube channel, and we were very, very pleased to see that as well.
So please push like and subscribe on YouTube. We love that. But also welcome to our followers all over the world. And this time, on this episode, we're going to stress how engulfing this pandemic of anxiety appears to be. So we've got wonderful followers now in Hong Kong.
We're in the top 100 in Hong Kong, in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, and in the top 200 or 300 in lots and lots and lots of countries this week. We were very, very amazed to
So
see
hello
people
to
around the
everyone.
world
But of course, this
listening.
is proof of how just quite how ubiquitous this pandemic of anxiety is, because we've got people listening in Hong Kong,
over the
people
world.
listening in Panama, we've got people listening on the Christmas Islands, and we know this because we can monitor this every week.
Right.
So children all over the world absolutely beset by anxiety. And then we have these headlines. I'm going to take this from the BBC, where I worked for very many years, and this is what it says. Over 1 million children in the United Kingdom referred for mental health care with anxiety the main reason. There's the headline there. And it goes on to say the number of children referred to mental health services in England has risen by 10% in just 1 year to more than 1 million, or 1 in every 10 children, according to a report. Anxiety listed as the most common reason, accounting for 16% of all referrals. And so I'm going to start by asking you, Saskia, why is that? How can it be rising, and why is it rising so fast?
So I think there are so many good reasons why it's rising, but obviously we know that one of the main reasons is the impact of COVID. For all of us, for our only time in our own personal histories, it will be the only time that we all lived with the same collective danger of death. And as we talked about lots of times before, anxiety becomes present when we are close to danger or death. And it was the only time I can think of, because I wasn't alive in the Second World War, and neither were you, that we've all been faced by the same feeling of closeness to death. We also saw schools shut for the first time in history, when children, even during World War II, were sent to be evacuated and sent to other schools that were sent to be safe for them somewhere else. It was the first time in history since children got universal education in this country where we said, schools are not safe for you. This is not a safe place. So we've changed children's perspective of the safe places they have, making all the places they go seem like they could have this danger. And not for all children, but this feeling that it could be dangerous is present for everyone.
Some people listening will think, but some of these children are too young to even remember this. It was 6 years ago. So, if you're 7, 8, 9 now, you were very little at the time. Can it really have this kind of residual effect, that the effect of the pandemic keeps on going and going and going?
So there are lots of things where we feel like we're still catching up. We're still catching up educationally. We're still catching up in trying to catch up on services that were meant to be given sooner and later, and things to do with mental health that people didn't get the access they were meant to have at the time. But there are also things like there have been lots of changes in society since then. We've got massive rates of divorce, so children going through very difficult divorces. We've got rates of poverty increasing, financial stress for all families. There are things that are highly stressful and anxious making that will be present in every family in the UK, and lots of those families experiencing more than one of those things at once.
And also the world picture.
The world picture is very
feels
frightening.
very precarious and very like a tinderbox, doesn't it?
That's right. And also there'll be families where they've got family members in countries with conflict. There'll be families who are worried about prospects and futures and visiting with their families. The things that we know help people to feel calm and relaxed, to feel safe, are knowing what's going to happen tomorrow in a calm way, feeling like life is consistent and manageable, and knowing that you have the help you need. And lots of people will say they don't have any of those things.
Yes.
So it would be very strange if we weren't all more anxious, but our children even more so, because they have limited experience of the universe. They can't say, well, generally when there's no money we're still absolutely fine. They don't they don't know. And so every single thing that happens to children comes with this extra added shock factor that they've never heard it before. And secondly, that they
Actually, I
don't.
just want to stop you there
Yeah.
because I think that's a very good way of putting it, and also a very interesting thing that I don't think many adults take on board or ever
Yeah.
really consider. If you're a child, you haven't got any sense of perspective because you've never seen it
That's
before,
right. But
whatever it is.
yes, but that's also literally how our brains work. So the part of the brain that is in charge of memory is the hippocampus. It also is in charge of dreams. That's why our dreams and our memory is a bit confusing sometimes. But the way that our brain stores memories, particularly to do with safety, is that they will store memories that are the same next to each other. So let's say you have 20 days of going to nursery where it was fantastic. Your child will believe that nursery is fantastic. If a big memory comes up that seems to be scary or fearful or makes them feel uncomfortable, that will sort of trump the ones they've had because it seems more important for their safety, because our brains are always trying to keep us alive and safe. So that kind of wipes out the ones they've already had, the safe ones they know. If something bad happens, it sort of trumps the things they already know. And then they had to sort of manage from there as if they've got no experience. But lots of things that children will face, they have no experience. They haven't got these lovely slices of memory next to each other like I do. If you and I hear a car door slam, we'll both go, I've heard a car door slam 5,000 times. I know it's a car door. A child might not have even one experience of that loud noise and think it's something extremely dangerous. So we've got this possibility that children will find things that are just new overwhelming, but in a time where all of us are facing lots of new things that we already find overwhelming, and children will look at our faces and think, is this something I need to worry about? And lots of parents' faces will be showing, yes, it is. We are really worried about the finances. Yes, they've cancelled our holiday. No, we won't be getting the money back. Yes, with this. No, with this. And the way that children will identify whether something's safe or not is by looking at their parents' faces and thinking, how worried about this do I have to be? And I would say we're all quite worried. Our faces are all quite contorted, and we're not putting on this brave face for our children because we can't. We're too shocked.
Okay, I have to say the thing that will probably drive you crazy, but everyone of my generation always says it.
Go
People
for
say
it.
it to
I'm
me all the
ready.
time, and they say it to me on the television, and they say it to me in the street, and everyone says it to everyone, it seems to me, which is, well, we didn't have this when I was young. No one was ever anxious then. There was no such thing as having anxiety. Maybe you were a little bit anxious about something, but nobody was diagnosed with anxiety. It didn't even exist. Hang on a second. Then they will all, I know you want to jump in, but they will also say, and things were terribly tough. We had an outside toilet. We had to share a tiny house with 3 other families. We didn't know where our next meal was coming from. We didn't even have the welfare state. We couldn't afford healthcare. We didn't have any shoes. My own grandpa wasn't able to go to school in the East End of London because sometimes he didn't have any shoes to wear. That is the truth. It's not a family legend. It's true. So some people will say, times were incredibly tough. Why weren't children all diagnosed with flipping anxiety then? And I know they say that because they keep saying it to me.
So the big thing is there were obviously anxious children then. If you ask people about their families or their siblings or their cousins, oh, well, I had that cousin who didn't go to school in 1942, he didn't this, whatever. People do have these memories of children. There was, you sometimes tell the story of that boy that wouldn't go to school when you were.
Yes, there was a
It
boy on my
isn't-
school
It
later
isn't
who
that
wouldn't
it
go
was.
to school.
It
That's
wasn't
true.
that it was impossible and there was no one. It was that our feelings generally were less accepted. We've already been through the 90s and the because I'm worth it generation, where suddenly you're allowed to say, I don't like that. I'd rather have the salad without the dressing. And all of those things where you're allowed to have your own perspective, your own exceptionalism, your own ability to be a person that's different from others, has over time, rather than just being something you do at a restaurant, I'll have the chicken on the side, become more and more how I feel really matters. What I think matters, how I do things matters. I don't want to wear the same as them. I don't want to be the same. I'm myself. And this ability to carve out your own self while also being extremely useful and helpful and fabulous for human rights is the thing that's also allowed people to show their vulnerable sides, their dark sides, the bits that they would have been punished and castigated for. You can see exactly the same thing in the way that we now diagnose children with neurodivergence. Lots of children have always been there with neurodivergence. People will say, oh, I had a cousin who was very finicky about things, for example, trying to indicate that their cousin may have had autism spectrum disorder. We don't know. They weren't diagnosed then. There are different children presenting in all different ways. But people will say, oh, I had a cousin who was a bit like that, whatever it is. But now we know what to look for. We allow children to be themselves. We don't want children or adults to live in discomfort or where they had to pretend the whole time, or what we call masking, that they're holding in their sad feelings, their discomfort, their sensory problems. We don't want people to live in an uncomfortable, horrible, constricted way. That's great. That's exactly what we want. But when we open up the chambers that we kept shut all those years, where children would have bouncing about with ADHD in the 70s would have got a slap, or they would have been really shouted at and sent to their bedroom until they sat still on the sofa, and they would have trained themselves over time like animals to behave the way that adults wanted, rather than just being allowed to let their body do what it was doing. It wasn't that these children didn't exist, it was that they knew they wouldn't be allowed to be seen. And we've learned over all this time, the word masking is now incredibly common. My child is masking at school, my child masks, blah, blah, blah. And why are we saying that? Because we want our children to be unmasked, to feel how they feel,
Be
to
their
receive
authentic selves. Yeah.
receive what they need.
Right.
And
So now I need to ask about this. Let's imagine you are referred to mental health services as a child with anxiety. How long are you likely to have to wait until any professional sees you and helps you and assists you and your family?
it's a very, very long time at the moment. It's extremely long. Obviously, like everyone says at the moment, it's a lottery based on where you live. If you live in a place where they have very good services, there's funding for those services, it could be quite a short time, could be a few months. If you live in, I live in the Borough of Barnet, it's over 2 years to have your first appointment for ADHD assessment, not to have your assessment, not to get your diagnosis. It's over 2 years to be assessed in the first instance, which means not medication, not diagnosis, not support at school, just someone looking at you and going, yeah, you're probably on the right track for diagnosis. And that's for ADHD. I think the same for autism. It could be around 2 years for children to receive specific care at CAMHS, which is a child and adult mental health service we have in the UK. But you might, for example, have better access with there are lots of lovely services around the UK that have been brought in by the government to try and fill this void. Things like early help, things like BICS. There are lots and lots of very good services. You need to be usually referred by your school, but there are lots of also self-referral portals on the council websites for early help. So people can get early help, which might be a few weeks or a few months, but usually they're short form interventions, which might mean you get some kind of help or parenting coaching or child therapy for 6 weeks, which for some children, if you've got to them early enough, is exactly the right amount of time. But for example, if you're looking for early help for a bereavement, I don't personally believe that 6 weeks of therapy is enough to support a child who's just lost a parent, for example. So the issue is that there are lots of children who are struggling for lots of reasons. Maybe neurodivergence, maybe trauma, maybe just a feeling that they've picked up from their environment that the world isn't a very safe place at the moment, which I wouldn't say is necessarily true. It's just how we feel. But we're in a position where it will be impossible for those children to all be seen at the same time because there's so many, and schools are trying to take on a huge amount and keep those children contained until they can get what they need.
So the book that you have written, which is Help, My Child's Anxiety is Giving Me Anxiety, that really is designed to help people who either don't think they yet need professional help,
That's right.
or those who are waiting for.
Yes, so the book covers literally everything that children can go through regarding anxiety from about 2 years old to about 30 years old. As a parent, you're looking at the perspective of looking after your children,
Yeah.
from separation anxiety, school anxiety, friendship anxiety, social anxiety, divorce anxiety. And the idea is that not only does it give you things you can do practically now, but it also directs you to the right kind of help, so you don't spend time waiting for something you don't need, that you can think, oh, well, actually, there's a support group for divorced children in my local area. I'll do that for now while I'm waiting for CAMHS to give my child some therapy, for example. So the idea is that there are different options for families to use, or at least to direct you in the right direction to choose the right kind of therapist or the right kind of intervention for the problem that's come up in your life. But I think it's very hard for everyone, and I'm hoping the book does a lot to support that in this podcast too.
All right. So let's imagine that you're
Yeah.
one of those families, or you think you might be. You're not quite sure. You haven't got your child sort of on the route yet to trying to seek professional help with anxiety,
Yeah.
but you can see that your child's very anxious. Your child won't eat the food he used to or she used to eat before, or can't go to a party with everybody else in the class, or, won't sleep. And you can just see that your child is not the sort of tranquil, happy child that you were hoping would be enjoying life. Your child's having trouble enjoying things. So if I ask you what could you do starting today that really might help pretty quickly, what would you say?
So I would reach out to your GP and just make sure that there's nothing else going on that you haven't noticed. If it's been sustained for a little while and you're beginning to be more worried, I would definitely take your child to GP just have someone else look at them and check that there's nothing else going on that you need to be more worried about, and also to then start the process. GPs can do referrals to CAMHS and get children on the right track to get what they need. The other things I would do is I would sit with your child and say, and there's an actual script in the book for how to do it,
Mhm.
I've noticed that you've not really been yourself. I wonder whether it's because, and I would suggest some things. I wonder it's because if it's because we've just had our divorce. I wonder if it's because you're worried about secondary school. I wonder if it's because your friend went to a different school and now you're quite a little bit lonely. This is what I've been wondering. And you're not saying, I think it's this. This is the reason. You're saying, I'm being curious. I'm wondering about what it might be. And then I'm also wondering how we can sort of support you while that's going on and also think of things to make it better. So I'm not trying to rush my child out of their feelings ever. I'm trying to show them that I'm there to support them. I would also try and think, if I think the thing that's stressing them out is school, how do I make home feel like the opposite of that place? How do I make it feel like a refuge? How do I make it feel calmer, safer, without the things they're worried about if they're a child with ADHD and they're always being told off? I think, how do I really facilitate evenings where at least once a week where I don't have to correct their behavior, give them this sort of break from the thing that's causing their anxiety? And I'd be thinking, how do I make my home feel that way? How do I make my home feel calmer, safer, less of a rush? How do I reduce the feelings of anxiety that I could be bringing to my own child so that we can then work on the things that are with the original problem?
And I know that one of the things that you've stressed through all these podcasts that we've made is to instill in your child a sense that you, the adult, really are capable.
That's right.
That you really can ensure that they will be safe. You really can get to the bottom of whatever the problem is. Not only you can, but you will.
Yes.
So they can relax knowing that you are capable. Now,
Yeah.
some of us, and I think it's partly, I don't know, but partly a sort of British thing.
Yeah.
God, look at me, I'm making a big mess again. I'm always, oh, I never know where I'm going. Oh, God, I'm so chaotic. Or, gosh, I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I don't know. That kind of modest, kind of slightly Hugh Grantish,
Yes.
goodness me, what am I doing now? They're all, and I think we do it because it's partly sort of seems a bit modest.
Yeah.
We're not showing off. We're not
Self-deprecating.
swaggering in like the big old I am, leave it to me. I can do everything. I'm a big star at everything. We do the opposite thing. Oh,
Yeah.
gosh, look at me. Well, I forgot my keys and I don't know, that thing.
Yeah.
And, we do it in different ways depending on our personalities. But I think we do tend to understate ourselves rather than overstate ourselves. Anyway, lots of us do, I think. But sometimes for the sake of your anxious child, it seems to me, having listened to you and worked with you all this time, that one of the things you really need to do, and it may not come naturally, is big yourself up a bit.
Definitely.
Big yourself up as a parent.
Yeah.
And say, I know what I'm doing. I know how to do it. I'm an adult. I can drive.
Yeah.
I can, I can pay bills. I know how I'm doing all of this. And you can rely on me to be the person that does that. Am I right?
Absolutely. And I
Okay.
think you can use examples. Doesn't matter what job you've had before being a parent. If you're still working, if you're not, doesn't matter. If you really feel like you've got a whole load of skills in parenting, I would tell your child that you do. Whether, it really doesn't matter what your previous experience was. You held down a job, you did X or Y, you made money, you were organized, you got there on time. Those are exactly the skills you need to get your child to school with the right uniform, with the right money for the PE kits. You have the skills and you're already doing it. The thing that I think is so amazing about most parents is they totally underestimate their abilities when they're smashing it on a daily basis in terms of getting so much stuff done. Everyone does get to bed. Is it 5 minutes late? Is it an hour late? Have they all eaten 500 vegetables at dinner time? No, but children are healthy and going to school and hanging out with their siblings and not punching everyone and whatever. And even if there are days when it isn't exactly what you're expecting, you've still succeeded. We all stand with our previous days as our successes because we're all still here doing it. And I think the issue is that we exactly said underplay our skills and achievements, which then make our children feel like they're on unsafe ground, when actually you are getting them to school every day with the things they mostly need, picking up at the right
I'm
time.
not just saying you're doing that.
No.
I'm saying, I'm not saying this is a therapy for parents.
No.
Even you're wonderful, you're doing it.
Sure.
We know all that bit. But the point is, sell yourself to
That's
them.
right. Exactly.
Take the anxiety about whether they're going to be looked after, whether they're going to be fed, whether you know what's going on, whether you can help and protect
That's
them.
right.
Take that away from them by selling yourself to them. So first of all, sit down with them and say to them, I wonder if you really are yourself. I wonder how things are going. I'm not quite sure. Could it possibly be because of the fact that grandma's in hospital? Has that made you feel, whatever it is, that
Yes.
thing where you have the conversation where you acknowledge that they are anxious, you can tell, and invite them to maybe confide in you, if indeed they're able to pinpoint it, which they may not be.
Which is why we suggest.
Exactly. And then follow it up with selling yourself
That's
as
right.
if you're your own PR, that I can help and
I will help, and I
I'm
do
not,
do it. I'm
and I
already
can make
helping.
sure that this house is absolutely safe, and I can get us to the destination on time, and I am a capable person that lives a capable life. So those two things you think might be a first step that you could just implement just right here. It would cost you no money at
Yes,
all.
and the feeling that your home is like the opposite of the things that we don't make feel relaxed with. So,
Yes.
and I'd even do this thing where I take a big deep sigh when I come in and say, thank goodness we're home. Now I can really relax. Even if you're then going to start doing all your work afterwards at the kitchen table, you're
Yeah.
going to start cleaning the kitchen in a serious way, or you've got to fold all the laundry. I would feel to your children this feeling of we're home, we can relax
Mm.
all the time. I would make it feel like that's exactly how you feel, even if you don't. And if you're not relaxing at home, yes, it might be that you need to do extra work or organize things, but how can you add a bit of that into your life so your children can see that rest is important, that recovery is
So
important,
for
time together
example,
is important.
doesn't cost any money. Everyone can do this. You come in through the door, take your shoes off.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so comfortable here. Isn't it lovely? You don't have to wear your shoes
Absolutely.
anymore. This is great. Open the window. Go. We love filling the house with fresh
Fresh
air.
air.
This is really great.
Let's all have a lovely glass of cold
And
water from
then
the fridge.
everyone bring a pillow down from their bedroom.
Yes.
And we can lie on a pillow on the floor. We're extra comfortable in our extra comfortable, very cheap
Exactly.
supermarket pajamas.
Exactly.
You know, we're in our pajamas. This is great. We don't have to wear shoes. This is great. The air's fresh and clean. This is great. We're lying on our pillow from our bed, which we can't do at school. We can stretch out, which is absolutely great. We can do a few exercises and really limber up, which is great. And if you're me, you then make them an obstacle course,
Obviously, it's
which
the
is great. They
main
have to do
suggestion for mental health that Vanessa Feltz ever has is
my
do an
best
obstacle
suggestion.
course.
You make an
It's a good
obstacle
one.
course.
I'm always happy to endorse it because it's an absolutely
Everyone has to
phenomenal
do a
choice.
really excellent obstacle course which has a bit of humour in it, which could involve eating a donut
Wearing
or
a
it could
hat,
wearing
having
a
a
hat.
laugh, all the
Exactly.
fun stuff.
And then we form a human chain for supper.
The only thing
Everyone
anyone should ever
passes
do.
everyone something out of the fridge to the next person, whatever it is for supper. And the same for the clearing up. A human chain is also marvellous.
Always
This is
great.
nothing to do with Saskia, but only my own thing, which I just think really works
Yeah,
brilliantly.
your two big
And
things
you
are an obstacle course and a human chain.
obstacle
They
course,
come up a
human
lot on the
chain,
podcast. If you've
take
been here
your
a while,
shoes off,
you'll
lie
know.
on a comfortable pillow,
Yes.
you know, and we always say this, but, you know, watch a good film that the whole family,
That's
but
right.
actually watch it. No one has a screen.
No one's on a
No one,
phone.
and you just talk about it while you're
I
watching
can't
it.
believe they just did that. Why are they going there? Don't go to the party. Go somewhere
Also,
else.
my favourite, love that bit, rewind, let's watch it again.
When we're watching things that make us laugh, like there's that really good bit in Cool Runnings where Sanka Coffee says, I'm going to draw a line on your head and make it look like a butt.
Yes.
And my children have watched that same one, literally a 30-second clip, this, you know, about 400 times, even though we like that film. It's a cracking film.
But I really like that bit in my big fat Greek wedding where she says, I'm
I
walking.
see you, I not
don't
see you.
I see you, I don't see
Yes,
you.
that's
We
a
love that.
great-
So
great wedding
anything
too.
good, repeat.
Repeat it,
Rewind,
really have a good
repeat,
laugh.
Have a good laugh. You're
Sit a
watching
bit.
it. And
We're
also,
not in a rush.
You're exactly.
We're not in a rush.
That's because you're not in a rush.
No.
And that's the whole thing to take out of the heat out of everything.
And there will be times when you are in a rush and you are allowed to rush.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to get to school on time. You are allowed to rush. I don't think it's fair to ask people to wake up at half an hour early and do things they just can't do. I think, you know, someone once said to me, why don't you wake up earlier? And I just need to sleep. I won't be able to manage that if I haven't had that half an hour. Yes, I would have all the shoes in a line, but I'm just not that person. I just cannot wake up earlier. So I'm not going to tell other people to do things I know myself I don't want to
And
do.
you see, she's not me because I am
You
that
would
person.
wake up
I'm the
earlier. We're
wake
not
up
the same
half an hour
person.
earlier and have the shoes on. And I'm actually go to sleep wearing your shoes to save time in the
You are.
morning.
You
I'm like,
definitely
have
are.
breakfast now, so then tomorrow morning you won't have to have it because you've done it in advance. That's me.
right. And I'm not
She's
that
my child
person.
and she's nothing like me at all. And that's another thing.
That's also okay.
Our children are not us
But
and we are not
I
them.
think
And that's
the idea
important.
is that you can realize there will be times when you're rushing and you'll have to rush, but to notice the times when you're not in a rush and allow yourself and your children to slow down and be together as a means of saying, whatever's going on in the world, we can handle it. We aren't at the pace of other things that have to rush us. We are a team. We've got the power. We are controlled. We do what we need to do. And we don't have to feel so pressured or pushed by anybody
And also,
else.
we're very lucky is a nice one.
We're very lucky.
We're very lucky because we have this lovely thing that we can do together and we know this great song. I taught your children another song this
I know,
weekend,
I
which
don't-
just
I
only
don't- I
came to
wasn't
me out
there,
of
so I
it.
can't
It's an
join in.
absolutely marvellous song.
I can't join in. I don't
It's
know
just
it.
tremendous. And the chorus is hey down, ho down, derry, derry down. I didn't even know I knew that song. So
I don't know.
It came back to me from nowhere. Anyway, teach them a song, have a laugh. I know it's not as easy as that, but it helps to just, if you can just lighten everything up a little
Right.
bit and just, you know, have a laugh about things a little bit.
That's right.
Move about a bit. So you don't just sit in solid silence, feeling dreadful. All of that can help. I know it's not the solution, but it can help a little bit. Anyway, we're going to take a break now. And when we get back from the break, we're going to bring you a Never Felt So Good, which is something that you can do for free or for very little money with your children that reminds you that they are rather lovely and you're quite pleased you had them in the first place. And we'll also answer one of your questions. That's straight after this break. Welcome back to our podcast, which is Help My Child's Anxious, with me, Vanessa Feltz, and the lovely Saskia Joss. Every week on the podcast, we answer your questions, which you send to
helpmychildsanxiouspod or helpmychildsanxious@gmail.com.
And this one really appeals to me tremendously. I feel a close affinity for this child and not necessarily so much for the parent. This is about a child who is telling what we would call fibs or little porky pies.
Yes, so we got a message from a lady called Fiona, and she said, I'm just not sure how to handle it. It's giving me anxiety. I have a child who keeps telling me things that I know aren't true. For example, last week he told me that when he was at school, a donkey had come into the classroom.
Right.
So because it was such an odd thing, I think she's saying that she went to speak to the teacher, and then when it turned out it just wasn't true at all.
Yes.
So it wasn't a horrible thing. He wasn't pretending he'd done something shocking or awful. He didn't lie about something that was moral, and he's just adding things in
Yes.
that mean that she can't really trust what he's saying. And so she feels a bit overwhelmed as to whether she needs to sort of verify him and check him against a sort of fact checker. And I think it's a really, really good question. I think sometimes we worry about children lying about important things like where they've been or what they've done. But actually, what if your child is not lying about important things? And in fact, they're just adding this sort of surprising peppering of things that you just begin to feel like you don't know what to do.
Okay, well, do I chip in at this point?
Whichever way you like.
Okay, I was that child.
Right,
I was that child. So every single leaden, deaden, boring, blinking week at my school on a Monday, you had to do this thing called diary, where you had to stand in front of the class and say what you'd done at the weekend. And I was a child. What had we ever done at the weekend? Absolutely nothing. Our grandparents had come for dinner, or they hadn't come for dinner, or we'd gone for a walk around the block or something. I was a child. It was the 60s. No one ever did anything. It was boring beyond belief.
There was no
nothing to
soft
say.
plays. There was no
No soft play. There's no play of
Nothing.
any kind. You just sat there miserably eating a bowl of gruel and saying, "Please, sir, I want some more." It was
Yes,
really
of course.
hellish. So standing in front of the class, I was. This is from the age of about 5 onwards to about, let's say, 8. I couldn't bear to say what I'd actually done because it was so incredibly boring. I was ashamed that there was nothing more epic to say. So I didn't even think it through, but I just told the most fantastic tales. And actually, when I think about it now, I think they had quite a lot of violence, domestic violence. I would say that my father had given my mother a good punch in the kisser. I would...
Nowadays, we'd have a big old problem with that.
But I would talk about, glamorous occurrences and fabulous outings to fantastical banquets and parties and balls and soirees. And I was only 5 and 6 and 7. And I did it to be entertaining. I did it to entertain primarily myself, among others. I didn't mind the fact that the class were enjoying it thoroughly and desperate for the next instalment. The teachers were absolutely beguiled by my fictional anecdotes. But myself, I did it partly for myself because life was so damn boring and I couldn't stand it. And this revved it up enormously. This is the truth. And I know that the teacher did talk to my parents about it.
Right.
We were a little worried about Vanessa, who's...
Maybe because you kept saying that your dad was beating up your mum.
Yeah, whatever it was. And
It wasn't at all.
luckily, this was one of those rare occasions when my parents did have a sense of humour.
Yeah.
And I think they did realise I was only doing it for fun and just to make life more fun and broader. And if your child says a donkey came into the classroom and it didn't, my view is give that child a lovely present, because what they're trying to do is rev things up a bit. They're trying to say something funny and notable,
Yes.
and they're trying to make they
I
could
think
grow up to
also,
be
yeah.
they could grow up to be T.S. Eliot or Chaucer,
That's
or
right.
Ginny Cooper or anyone. That's great. I love all that.
I think there are a few things to consider
Oh,
in a good way and
Oh.
in a nice way. One is we just have to say to our children, I love your stories.
right.
I love it when they're true, and I love it when they're not true. I love your stories. They're fabulous. When I had such a good laugh last week thinking about that donkey in the classroom. What if it had come in? It would have eaten all the homework. It would have chewed on your teacher's hat.
Yeah.
It would have done a big poo in the middle of the classroom. What an absolutely hilarious idea. I love that your brain comes up with these amazing things.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy for that to be the case. And I'm happy to have any of your stories, particularly if you give me a little wink, so I know that I can really enjoy it and I don't have to worry about it.
Yes.
Because I know you're also a bit allergic to donkeys, that you're allergic to fur, and if I'm your mom, I've got to worry if you need a Piriton before school.
Yeah.
Other antihistamines are available, that sort of thing. So what I'd love is to know with a little wink when it's something that I can just enjoy. And so I don't, as your mum, because it's my job to worry about you and make sure you've got what you need, I'd love just a little wink. Then I'll know that I can really enjoy the story about the donkey without having to worry and ask the school whether they've got health and safety that you might get bitten by a donkey. Because I'm your mum, I have to just be able to check those sorts of things. I think the thing is, we want our children to be able to feel like they can tell us anything. True things, false
I
things.
just remembered a fib that I told, and this was at nursery school.
Okay.
I was 2.
Okay, very
And
little.
when my mother came to pick me up from the nursery school, I remember my mother telling me this when I was grown up, they were absolutely shocked to see her because I had said, my mother is in hospital with strawberry poisoning. And they assumed that that meant she'd had a miscarriage. Well, I'd never even heard of it. I was only 2. I wasn't assuming anything. I just said my mother's in hospital with strawberry poisoning, probably because Baba, the elephant's father, died from eating a bad mushroom.
Right.
So I probably somehow in my mind
Made an
Yeah.
inference, and also wanted to discuss this idea of parental death, but in a way that was slightly different and also less serious for the, I'm
Yes.
a child therapist, so I would break that down into little pieces. And if we were able to work out in the session when you came at 2, who you had heard of that had eaten something that had made them unwell, we would have got there.
Baba, the elephant's dead.
We would have absolutely got there.
Yeah.
I think it would be very hard to guess that without you being able to remember that other piece of the puzzle.
Yes, but my mother said they had for some reason thought it meant that she had a miscarriage.
Right.
She hadn't at all.
No.
When she showed up absolutely fine to pick me up.
Yes.
They were flabbergasted. And the teacher said, teach the child to tell the truth.
So many children will say things at nursery about their parents, that they've had a baby, that they haven't had a baby, that their mother is pregnant, that they're going on holiday when they're not. So many things. And why are they doing that? They're doing it to understand the world and put things in place to see what happens.
And entertain the world.
And entertain themselves and make sense of things they don't know. I think what she's probably worried about as the parent is not knowing when to be up in arms and not knowing when to trust what the child said. And I get that. We need our children to tell us the truth about things because we need to know when to fight for them, when to bring the correct equipment, when to bring in the money for school. There are lots of these hilarious mums accounts where they do videos about like what the children have said at school and what in the WhatsApp group, and that's because it's true. When you're getting this misinformation from children, it's very hard to know how to prepare. And part of what makes parents feel not anxious is being prepared. If I have to also prepare for this invisible donkey, it's quite hard for me as a parent to be organised. I understand. So I think the idea is to say to a child, I absolutely love your stories. You couldn't be more humorous. You couldn't be more gorgeous. And I love them. I'd love a wink. Or I'd love a little tickle on the hand when you're telling me something that's only for fun, so that I know I'm allowed to enjoy it and don't have to start packing an extra bag for donkey bites to school. And I think that's really important. And say to them, I love it when it's true, and I love it when it's not true, but only if it's something that is only for fun. You must always tell me the truth about things because it's my job to look after you. So I think parents feel like if they've got a child that's happy to lie to them, in this case, kind of untruths in a funny way, it would bode that they don't actually, they'll lie to them about something important, and that's what parents feel worried about. So I understand that. So I would set the parameters. I love your stories. Please let me know when there are jokes. I don't come in with the bite cream for donkeys, but also always know that whatever it is, you can tell me. And if the donkey thing is because you're actually worried that they are going on an outing to the farm, I need to know.
See, I just don't know how I managed to bring you up at all because I was just much more, you tell a fib, okay. Just shows you're inventive, creative. You're
inventive.
I never really did come through with that kind of, but I really do need to know the very serious truths about things,
but you
so I can protect you and
did
blah blah. I really didn't.
But
I
you
was
did
like, what you're running away to join the travelling circus? Marvelous. Let me buy you a sandwich. Make you a sandwich.
But I think in that one is even first I don't think I ever said that. So the response is humorous. But if a child says I'm running away to join the travelling circus, I would be thinking,
why are you running
why are
away?
you running away?
So you can say not that one bad example,
Right,
but
but
you know what I mean.
I think our job is to think around the funny lie, tell them we thought it was funny, but also put in the boundary that we think is important.
And also, let's not call it a lie. It can just be entertainment.
Yeah, fun untruth, extra story, great ideas. I don't think we have to make it a negative thing, but we also, if as that parent I think is feeling that she's worried she won't be able to trust important things, I would just make it really clear what you think is funny and what you don't.
All right, coming up after this break, Never Felt So Good, our favourite part of the show, something fun that you can do with your children to remind yourself, actually you quite like them when you think about it, sometimes. Pardon me, boy, is that the Chattanooga choo-choo?
Choo. Track 29.
You want to give me a shine. We're talking
We've got the most phenomenal
trains.
I never felt so good for this week.
Yeah.
Completely free. Sometimes you don't have to do it. This one is completely free, and I'm in love with it.
What is it? What is it?
So, I love going on trains. We only went on recently on a train adventure, just us with the kids to Brighton. We had such
You and me loved it.
we had a great time.
Yeah.
And this summer, I'm hoping to take the children to York on the train because we want to go and see some of the old-fashioned buildings there. My son's very into history. We're going to do some really cool. We might go to Warwick on the train and go to historic
Warwick.
I love historic Warwick.
Yeah.
So we've got lots of places we want to go to, and I would much rather go on the train because I like to be able to use the loo with the kids if they need it. I like to be able to eat at a table rather than just handing them things in the back and being worried about safety. I want to just be able to relax with them. I don't want to be navigating. I want to talk to them. So I love going on the train, and we had such a lovely time recently.
Yeah.
I have a way to upgrade. I have a very special way to upgrade your activities on the train.
What is it?
So I also love Yoto Player, and Yoto Player have these lovely draw-alongs, but Yoto Player...
Lovely what?
Yoto Player.
No, I heard the Yoto Player.
Okay.
You said they have these lovely...
Draw-alongs. It's the big
What's
thing
a
I'm about to tell you.
What is that?
So I don't know whether you know about Yoto Player. They make lovely audio things for children to listen to. They're a fantastic company, but that is not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about their draw-alongs.
Right.
So draw-along is an audio your children can listen to with no screen whatsoever, where they're told the steps of drawing a picture.
Oh, okay. Draw along.
They draw the stunts at the same time.
Okay.
And it's done by that lovely man, Jake, who does all of the podcasts on Yoto Player. So your children will know his lovely bouncy voice that they listen to. And Trainline and Yoto Player have made a partnership for this summer where people can listen to these brand new 12 draw-alongs completely for free for the entire summer. All you need is a piece of paper and a pencil, and you need a phone and some headphones.
I'm wild about this.
You can either do it with your Yoto Player, you can download it onto a card, or if you've just got a mobile phone, you just need the Yoto Player app, which is completely free. And for the whole summer until September, there are 12 completely free draw-alongs that you can do with your children, all summer themed, like going to the beach and ice creams and whatever. And all they do is listen to them with headphones. You can do it on your phone and have a piece of paper, and the man will tell them what to draw next. The sunshine in the top corner, the sea on the bottom. It's very relaxing, but it's so relaxing and so lovely. You can also look out the window on the train while you're there. You can talk about what you're drawing. Oh, my son's a bit small, your son's a bit big. You can do it with a special thing where your children can listen to the same one at the same time on the Yoto Player headphones. There are things about it that are just so lovely, and they give parents this option to do something creative that's very, very present and relaxing.
Okay, well, that is a beautiful.
I
felt so good.
I've already done it with my children, and it was
I know you
so
did it.
lovely.
You did it last weekend.
You'll see on my Instagram us on a train with our Yoto listening and doing our drawing, and we had such a laugh. I highly recommend it. You just need the
It's
app.
actually very sweet because when they got off the train, they were still laughing.
And they were also carrying their pictures home.
Carrying their pictures, exactly. And
So I was very, very pleased
Yeah.
to do something so lovely and creative and so easy to manage where I didn't have to think of the activity myself. And I really recommend it for this summer. I think it's going to be fun.
All right, well, that's the end of this podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope it's been of some help and some kind of entertainment. I haven't been a totally fatuous parent. I've tried to just tell the truth.
She goes, great job.
I own my mistakes, but look at my mistake. That's my baby.
Wait, go on.
And that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, have a lovely week. We'll see you next time. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at Help My Child's Anxious Pod. And we'll see you for some more fun and chatting and help with anxiety next time.